once gave his life and blood for his homeland, carrying out countless missions that were close to death. Yet in the end he became a disposable pawn of the top brass, marked for a secret erasure from this world. Ji Dongcheol belonged to the most dangerous intelligence division in the north, a special unit directly under military control. Training a single agent took more than a dozen instructors, required passing countless life or death trials, and only a tiny few ever survived to the end. Anyone who made it through was an elite among elites within the special forces. After enduring hell-level training, they were sent across the world to carry out assassinations and infiltration missions, and even the W country's intelligence agency, the CIA, tried desperately to capture just one of them, but the only result was the loss of their own agents, without gaining any useful clues or evidence to prove the existence of this secret northern unit. But the good times did not last. Because of a change in the northern regime, Dongcheol was betrayed by his own organization during his final mission. After narrowly surviving death, he relied on sheer willpower to swim back to the docks and secretly sneak back into the north. Unaware of what had happened, Dongcheol thought only of his wife who was about to give birth and rushed home with all his strength, only to fall into the hands of his former comrades. Because they belonged to different factions, Dongcheol was framed with a fabricated charge of treason. Until the moment of his death, Dongcheol could not believe his own country would abandon him, and even after enduring a series of inhuman tortures meant to force a confession, he would rather die than admit to a crime he never committed. But when someone wants to condemn you, excuses are never in short supply, and in order to eliminate rivals within the factional struggle, they still sent Dongcheol to the gallows. Before the execution, a former comrade told him that his wife and daughter had escaped to South Korea with the help of other comrades before their executions, and immediately after that, Dongcheol was sentenced to death. Having devoted himself entirely to his country, Dongcheol had nothing left but his faith in the nation and his longing for his wife and child. And after learning they were still alive, how could he possibly leave them behind to suffer alone? At the critical moment, Dongcheol unleashed an unprecedented will to survive, and with sheer determination and a body hardened through years of training, he forcibly dislocated and twisted free his bound hands. In this way, Dongcheol escaped death and fled from the execution platform. After surviving, he desperately searched for news of his wife and daughter, but what awaited him in the end was a permanent separation. Heartbroken, he only found his lifeless wife, and there was no trace of his daughter. With everything lost, he believed his daughter had no hope of survival, which plunged him into despair and turned him into a defector hiding in South Korea just to stay alive. Fortunately, fate showed him mercy, and he was taken in by Chairman Park, a pro-North figure. Chairman Park himself was a refugee from the North decades ago, and because of this emotional bond, he had long tried to repair relations between the two Koreas. Because of the trust he placed in Dongcheol, Chairman Park hired him as his personal driver. Yet Dongcheol could never let go of the hatred over his wife's death, and when he learned that the enemy who killed his wife and daughter had also defected to the south, he planned to quit his job to seek revenge, only to unexpectedly witness an attempt on Chairman Park's life. Calm in the face of catastrophe, and unmoved by chaos around him, Dongcheol could not stand by while his benefactor was attacked. Although the attacker was armed with a deadly weapon, to Dongcheol it was nothing more than amateur work, and in the next second the opponent was overwhelmed by despair. However, despite Dongcheol's timely intervention, the lethal poison injected into his benefactor left no chance of survival. As the head of the Haja Group and a well-known pro-North figure, Chairman Park used his last breath to hand Dongcheol a pair of crucial glasses, muttered a cryptic final sentence, and passed away with regret.
꼭 물어달라. 꼭.
Even stranger, not long after the butler called the police, officers arrived as if it had all been planned in advance, and Dongcheol noticed that as soon as they entered, one of them pulled out a silenced handgun and locked the door to the crime scene. He knew very well that normal South Korean police would never operate like this, and he immediately became alert. In a split second, Dongcheol jumped out the window and escaped, and by the time they gave chase, he had already vanished without a trace. At this moment, a man inside the surveillance room was staring intensely at the fleeing Dong Cheol, and he was Kim Suk-ho, the head of the National Intelligence Agency, who quickly ordered a background check and uncovered Dong Cheol's hidden past. In the end, the villains still got what they wanted, while Dong Cheol once again found himself forced into danger, escaping with Chairman Park's vital possession. Because he had always trusted those close to Chairman Park, Dong Cheol immediately called Director Song, but during the call he heard strange interference, and relying on an agent's sharp instincts, he switched phones at once and cut off contact with the compromised Song. He then looked out the window and saw numerous watchers lying in wait nearby. So Dong Cheol immediately slipped away into the crowd and got into the car of a female journalist. The journalist Kim Hee had been following Dong Cheol for some time, hoping to make a documentary about defectors, but midway through the drive, after seeing news of Chairman Park's assassination, she wanted to turn back and ask Dong Cheol what had happened, only to realize he had already disappeared without a sound. After realizing how troublesome Dong Cheol was, Kim Suk-ho decided to play dirty and shift the blame for the assassination onto him, since the victim was the widely respected Chairman Park. To conceal the truth, he first shot the butler and the maid, then fired 2 more shots into Chairman Park's body, all to frame Dong Cheol and convince the public that a defector had murdered the South Korean benefactor who took him in, turning public opinion completely against him. To dump the blame faster and capture Dong Cheol sooner, Kim Suk-ho even brought in military intelligence and summoned the former elite agent Min Se-hoon. Min Se-hoon, a proud and formidable operative, had once led an entire team on a raid against a northern transaction site, only for the squad to encounter the feared Dong Cheol and be wiped out in a single encounter. Strangely, during that operation, Dong Cheol spared only Min Se-hoon, yet afterward Min Se-hoon's life became worse than death. The mission failed, his teammates died, and he alone survived, leading to his demotion to an instructor, and that incident became a lifelong source of shame and guilt. Now that he finally accepted this mission, with fate bringing old enemies face to face, the chance to take revenge on Dong Cheol meant he would stop at nothing. Under Kim Suk-ho's arrangement, Min Se-hoon successfully collected evidence linking Dong Cheol to the killings, lifted Dong Cheol's fingerprints from the handgun and magazine, and discovered in his room that Dong Cheol had been searching for a man named Ri Kwang-jo. With these doubts, Min Se-hoon first summoned the reporter Dami, who had multiple contacts with Dong Cheol, but she not only refused to cooperate, she accused them in return of illegal detention. At the same time, after learning about the information found in Dong Cheol's room, Kim Suk-ho ordered an investigation into Ri Kwang-jo, only to discover in shock that this man was a defector supervisor under his own command. So he decided to use Ri Kwang-jo as bait to lure Dong Cheol out and obtain what he wanted. Meanwhile, Min Se-hoon unexpectedly received a call from Dong Cheol himself, who stated clearly that he had been framed, that he had discovered the real culprit while Chairman Park was being poisoned, and that the motive was the glasses Chairman Park had given him. But Min Se-hoon refused to accept his one-sided explanation, so Dong Cheol directly named a meeting place.
청량리에 있는 삼익 맨션으로 갑니다. 거기 내 시체가 있을 겁니다.
The location Dong Cheol mentioned was exactly where he had been desperately searching for Ri Kwang-jo before Chairman Park was killed. He had already helped Dong Cheol find Ri Kwang-jo's residence, but what he did not know was that across the street, Kim Suk-ho had long arranged snipers in advance. When enemies meet, emotions run high, and Ri Kwang-jo, once Dong Cheol's comrade, was the very man who carried out the order to personally kill his wife and daughter. Driven by the belief that vengeance must be taken, Dong Cheol asked Ri Kwang-jo if he had any last words, but the man calmly picked up a pen, wrote something on his palm, and told Dong Cheol to come closer to see it. As the curious Dong Cheol stepped forward, he suddenly noticed a glint of light brush past his face, and instinctively reacted at once, only for a hail of bullets to follow. Faced with the snipers covering Ri Kwang-jo, Dong Cheol could only watch as his enemy escaped, but he still risked grabbing Ri Kwang-jo's phone before withdrawing rapidly from the area. However, Dong Cheol's crisis was far from over, and after the failed revenge, Min Se-hoon immediately locked onto him, since it was Dong Cheol himself who had exposed his position. But when it came to evading the surveillance net, he knew how to exploit the chaos of crowds and continuously change his appearance to break free from the tracking. At that moment, Ri Kwang-jo's phone rang, and the person calling him was the very agent who had just provided sniper cover for his escape. And in a cruel twist of fate, the two collided face to face, and after confirming each other with a single glance, both sides immediately entered a fight to the death. When he saw the opponent pull out a poison needle, Dong Cheol instantly triggered his survival instincts and counterattacked. And when facing the most formidable agent from the north, the agent from the south was completely outmatched, ultimately bringing disaster upon himself and being killed by the very poison needle he prepared, dying with regret. Watching this scene through surveillance, Min Se-hoon was finally convinced that Dong Cheol had been telling the truth, and that this third party hunting him was unquestionably connected to Chairman Park's death. So he pressured the medical examiner in charge of the autopsy, but the examiner insisted that Chairman Park had been killed by gunfire, while Min Se-hoon had already ordered his people to investigate and knew that Chairman Park had died before the gunshots were fired. Min Se-hoon demanded that the examiner come clean in exchange for leniency, forcing out the truth about the falsified evidence, and then went to confront Kim Suk-ho, who had originally been in charge of the case, playing Dong Cheol's recorded statements for him and openly suspecting that the person truly behind the attack on Dong Cheol was Kim Suk-ho himself. For this reason, Min Se-hoon questioned Kim Suk-ho about what secret Chairman Park's glasses actually contained, but Kim Suk-ho showed him no respect at all and bluntly stated that it was classified information beyond his authority, and that his only task was to capture Dong Cheol. Meanwhile, having narrowly escaped death, Dong Cheol recalled seeing the words "your daughter is still alive" written on Ri Kwang-jo's hand, which made him even more determined to track Ri Kwang-jo down and get the truth. So he called Min Se-hoon again and demanded that Ri Kwang-jo be handed over, promising to surrender the agent in return. But Min Se-hoon told him that the man was not under his control, leaving Dong Cheol with no choice but to wait. At the same time, while riding the subway, Dong Cheol noticed a pair of glasses worn by an elderly man and immediately realized the secret hidden within the glasses. So he contacted the reporter Dami at once, intending to have her document this discovery. Min Se-hoon, who had been closely monitoring Dami's movements, seized this opportunity to try to capture Dong Cheol, but unexpectedly came up empty-handed, leaving him furious over failing to catch either of them. What he did not expect was that Kim Suk-ho would arrive with people from a national security unit and directly inform Min Se-hoon that their purpose in killing Chairman Park and hunting Dong Cheol was to retrieve the glasses in his possession, because during the investigation of Chairman Park, they discovered that he had secretly researched a weapon technology overseas and in the north, with destructive power comparable to a small atomic device, and the chemical formula for this weapon was engraved within those glasses. The national security officials then accused Min Se-hoon of incompetence and suspected collusion with the enemy, citing the fact that during the earlier operation against Dong Cheol he was the only one who survived. And using this as justification, Kim Suk-ho suspended him from duty to await a military tribunal. After dismantling the glasses, Dong Cheol had reporter Dami record everything and recount the entire incident, exposing that their true objective had always been this formula. And in the end, Dong Cheol handed the evidence to the reporter to prove his innocence and publicly reveal the intelligence agency's real agenda. On the other side, Min Se-hoon still had reliable subordinates supporting him, and acting as a double agent. One of them delivered good news, as the medical examiner provided Min Se-hoon with evidence and the truth, confirming that Chairman Park had indeed died from poison before being shot, and that the fingerprints on the weapon did not belong only to Dong Cheol, with another set of prints matching the trigger pull. Because of this, the first suspect that came to Min Se-hoon's mind was Kim Suk-ho, as only he had relentlessly pushed the case forward and even forced Min Se-hoon himself into suspension. At the same time, Dong Cheol once again called Min Se-hoon's command center, only to discover that Kim Suk-ho had taken control, and a smug and confident Kim Suk-ho spoke to Dong Cheol directly.
10초 오면 넌 개선에 뒤질 거거든.
Dong Cheol immediately hung up and rushed to the rescue, because he had just left Dami's hiding place. And at that very moment, Dami was being held at gunpoint by the arriving Ri Kwang-jo. Seeing this, an older man who tried to save Dami was shot by another arriving agent. Amid the chaos of gunfire, they seized the formula Dong Cheol had given to Dami, with Ri Kwang-jo handing it off to an accomplice while staying behind to silence witnesses. Just as Ri Kwang-jo was about to make his move, Dong Cheol arrived in time and tackled him head-on, and the two quickly became locked in a brutal struggle. After a life-and-death fight, Dong Cheol shoved Ri Kwang-jo into exposed steel bars, killing him instantly. As the saying goes, a dying man speaks kindly, and as an act of atonement, Ri Kwang-jo told Dong Cheol with his last breath that his daughter was still alive. During that mission, when he realized he was being ordered to harm the wife and child of a fellow comrade, his conscience could not bear it, and he turned on his partner, but by then it was already too late, as Dong Cheol's wife lay dead in a pool of blood, though his daughter survived. However, because he disobeyed orders, Ri Kwangjo was forced to defect and flee south, bringing his entire family to seek refuge with Kim Suk-ho and taking Dong Cheol's daughter with him. But the inhuman Kim Suk-ho went even further, selling Dong Cheol's daughter to traffickers, and with his wife and child used as leverage, Ri Kwangjo had no choice but to obey Kim Suk-ho's orders, while other defectors were also controlled in the same way and forced into carrying out assassinations, for which he expressed deep remorse. And as his words faded, Ri Kwangjo died with regret, after learning that his daughter was still alive. Dong Cheol fought with everything he had to break out of the encirclement. On the other side, the double agent subordinate successfully obtained Kim Suk-ho's fingerprints and compared them with those found on the bullets, then uncovered through internal systems that Kim Suk-ho had secretly contacted overseas arms dealers. It turned out that earlier, Chairman Park had been coerced by Kim Suk-ho into collaborating with northern experts on weapons research, with the goal of selling the results to these dealers at a high price. So when Kim Suk-ho obtained the formula and proudly proceeded with the deal, believing enormous profits were guaranteed, expert analysis by the dealers revealed that the formula was not a weapons design at all, but a unique genetic sequence developed to improve crops based on northern climate conditions. In fact, while Kim Suk-ho was distracted, Chairman Park and the experts had quietly changed the research direction, creating a crop suitable for large-scale cultivation to address long-standing food shortages. Only then did everyone understand why Chairman Park's final words to Dong Cheol referred to something buried in northern soil. This revelation enraged Kim Suk-ho, and he threatened his collaborator Song, demanding that since the arms profits were gone, Song help him seize control of the Haja Group in exchange for higher rewards. To vent his anger, Kim Suk-ho even held a press conference to publicly shift all the blame onto Dong Cheol. But what he did not expect was that Dong Cheol would show up alone, storm the venue, and in a moment of complete surprise abduct Kim Suk-ho to force him to reveal his daughter's whereabouts. With death looming, Kim Suk-ho lied and claimed that Dong Cheol's daughter had long been killed. He claimed that he hadn't sold her to traffickers, but instead passed her to an illegal operation. Blinded by rage, Dong Cheol lost control and wanted to strangle Kim Suk-ho with his own hands. But at that moment Kim Suk-ho activated a blast door mechanism, and snipers waiting outside immediately took aim at Dong Cheol. In an instant, bullets poured in like a storm. Yet not a single one struck Kim Suk-ho. Although Dong Cheol managed to evade the attack, he was unarmed and could not get close to Kim Suk-ho at all. Even knowing that Min Se-hoon had worked with subordinates and reporter Dami to expose his dealings with Song and his exploitation of defectors for illegal profit, Kim Suk-ho remained calm and fearless, convinced that powerful backing was on his side.
이 나라는 돈이 있는 놈이 이기는 거야.
These words disgusted the arriving Min Se-hoon, and driven by his hatred of corruption, he could no longer tolerate such a parasite, so he loaded the last remaining bullet Kim Suk-ho had left into his gun and handed it to Dong Cheol, allowing him to deal with the man himself. When everything finally settled, Min Se-hoon at last understood that Dong Cheol had spared his life out of shared empathy as fellow fathers, so he made the same choice, handing the clue to Dong Cheol and deliberately letting him go. After months of relentless searching, Dong Cheol finally found the place where his daughter was being held, and among the trafficked girls, he recognized her at a glance, the unbreakable bond of blood making it impossible for him to look away. The girl seemed to feel it too, sensing the emotions radiating from this familiar yet unfamiliar figure. In that moment, she knew her father was standing right in front of her.